Hi, and welcome to this week's Mailbox, and it's a bit more varied in terms of things to discuss this week compared to last week where it was all very much Sylvanas, Alliance, Horde, all that sort of stuff. Although there are a few of them, we still have to get a few of them out of the way before we can actually start Battle for Azeroth. So, last week's Mailbox, a number of people got it right. It is indeed in New Kargath in Badlands. One of the more interesting places from vanilla, really, because just a little bit of nostalgia just to start off with, because that's how you got to access Searing Gorge. Well, there's two ways really. You could go through Red Ridge Mountains and go through Burning Steps through Blackrock Mountain into Searing Gorge, but you had to be reasonably high level, otherwise it'd be a very dangerous journey. Not impossible though. And then the other way, which was a difficult one to find out as Alliance. So I remember my search of it began when I was in, is it Loch Modan, where there's the gate, there's a tunnel into Searing Gorge. Pretty sure it's from there. But you needed a key. And the way to get the key was to get to Searing Gorge. So it's like, oh yeah, there's a key to Searing Gorge, but to get it, you've got to get to Searing Gorge. Okay, so after asking a few people, I found out there's a little way in past, not New Kargath, but Kargath in Badlands. So there we go. Right, someone else did suggest something rather interesting. They said, you should be mean and do guess the mailbox of somewhere in BFA continents before BFA release. So we will. It's not actually that mean. It's slightly mean because unfortunately it's dark here. When I read this and I thought, I'll go somewhere, and it was all night time in BFA, in the beta. But of course it releases tomorrow. We're like, at this point, not much more than 30 hours away. And so it's all really close. So certainly before next week's, there'll have been plenty of time to discover where this is. Doesn't really matter whether you're Alliance or Horde. Although it matters a little bit. It's a little bit more difficult to find if you're Horde, but never mind. I'll do a Horde one next week, maybe. So that's this mailbox. So you need to sort of say where it is, what specific locale it's in, as well as what zone it's in. So that should be fairly straightforward. There's only a choice of 6 zones. It can't be that hard. Right, let's get on to some comments. So the first one. So again, old gods and Sylvanas and Illyria and all that nonsense still to come. So it says, what if the prophecy does refer to Sylvanas? Illyria kills her and falls to the void, frees the old gods, and Sylvanas comes back after her third and final death. Yes, it would. And leaves the final resistance. I have to keep counting because we always have to remember with Sylvanas that when Arthur stabbed her, turned her into a banshee, she didn't actually die. And we've got sort of, so... Whereas with most undead, they were killed and then raised up, where she was just turned from living elf into banshee. In the Warcraft 3 cinematic, she completes her sentence while she's been turned into an undead. It's quite spectacular. But anyway, never mind that. So a lot of people count that as a death. So, she's already had 3. No, because that's not a real death. It can be a metaphorical death. Who knows? And leaves the final resistance against the old gods, making her a servant of the true enemy, everyone but the void. So the true enemy is everyone but the void. The void are the good guys. Everyone else is the enemy. Oh dear. Are you Donald Trump's script writer or something? You get... Oh dear. Anyway, but yeah, any number of things could happen. The bottom line is, although you can try and think logically about, take this into account with this and this and this and put everything together and this is a trajectory it follows, Blizzard will do whatever they want. They're not above leading you one way and then just doing something mad. But what I will say, just pick on the first point there, the prophecy thing. I don't know, someone might correct me, I don't know of any situation where any Old God Whispers have ever been prophecy. It's intention. Sometimes it's intention. Sometimes it's just downright lies. I believe that when Il'gynoth was talking, if it meant anything at all, I have no doubt that most of those statements from Il'gynoth are just completely made. They just pulled things out their ass. And maybe 2 or 3 of them are something that's based on a future storyline. So, with each one, you always have to assume, well, this is the one that's going to be based on a storyline because we don't know the difference. It might be none of them. But if it were that, I believe it applies to Sylvanas. People have said it could apply to Azeroth. It could. Because that's the ultimate goal of the old gods. You know, their rebirth, you know, do they just mean it in terms of getting back the Black Empire? That's not their ultimate goal. That was just how they were doing it. Their rebirth, surely, is with a corrupted titan, which is their aim. So there's an awful lot of people saying, well, you know, it probably applies to Azeroth, which is perfectly true. It could. But I always think Sylvanas still. That just always what makes sense to me. And I have no doubt it's their intention that Sylvanas heralds them in. Like I've already said, Sylvanas is being played by... She's doing exactly what the old gods... It maddens me when people keep saying, oh, no, the old gods fear her and can't be corrupted. And it's like, So I'm not going any more of that. Stop it now. But, yes, so I do think that they intend Sylvanas to do them an awful lot of good. You know, in fact, when they were talking about the world trees, and they were talking about the 5 torches to light our path, and I, you know, I don't know whether it's I've forgotten or I never knew about being 5 world trees. I didn't actually realise there were that many, and people saying there's 5 world trees. I thought, the torches, because Teldrassil is basically a torch now, and I'm thinking, ooh, but I still don't know if old gods actually have the power of prophecy. They might, you know, time travel is a thing in the game. Future sight may be a thing. I don't know. There's always been plenty of so-called prophecy, and Velen's called the prophet and things like that. He sees things. But I don't know that in World of Warcraft or the Warcraft story there's ever been a definite... Someone had a vision came true, as it was. It may have been, I may be forgetting something. But there's any number of like intentions that have come through. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that one. Now, on to sort of more practical matters. So I was talking about, you know, potentially sort of what gear I'm not destroying in my bags to use for leveling and even switching some things around. Someone saying, this may sound nutty, but I've purposely replaced all my tier pieces with the highest item level pieces I had banked just to get myself used to not having the bonuses. Same with, you know, the particular legendary there for Rets, to get used to not being able to double dip in the level 100 talent row. Obviously, when you have to get used to playing a very different way, obviously we've all had to get used to playing differently now because we've got the BFA abilities already. We still get our Legion set bonuses, still got our tier set bonuses, still got our legendaries, lost our artifact traits. So there's already been a transition period, and I would say, you know, that was a few weeks ago. I would say most people have sort of got used to it now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think most people after this ban would have got used to it. But we've got a similar amount of time before, you know, like the Mythic Plus raid dungeon, and then after it, the raiding comes out. So there's a few weeks before all that kicks off anyway when BFA launches tomorrow. So I don't know that it's necessary to do without the nice bonuses earlier than planned. You know, I think you get used to it quickly enough because you are going to get rid of them within a week. I mean, it depends how your leveling goes and what else you have to fit it around. But, you know, the raids and the Mythic Plus dungeons don't come out till September, you know, for like first week of September. So there's a few weeks to get used to everything before you need to be back on song, after which you'll have got used to doing without those bonuses anyway. It's remarkably quickly how you can just retrain yourself. I mean, we have to do it all the time anyway, don't we? We have to do it from tier to tier when we lose and gain the set bonuses. Similar things may happen with the Azerite traits. Some of the Azerite traits are not just passive. A lot of people just view them as being essentially passive, and some of them are. But some of them you notice. You do actually notice you've got them. Which means you also notice when you don't have them anymore. So that one is a bit extreme, I think, there. I mean, I would keep the bonuses while you've got them. You've only got them for a few levels anyway. Okay, so let's talk about some... I've never played EverQuest, but I have heard horror stories of this. So on Planes of Power release in EverQuest, my guild was raiding 7 days a week, 8 hours a day minimum. Now, I said minimum and put raiding in brackets because we had a phone tree set up. And at least once... I don't know what a phone tree is, but I suspect it's similar to what happens with the Dragons of Nightmare in Warcraft. And at least once a week, we'd get a call in the middle of the night to log on and get to a certain zone to hit a boss that spawned. We'd then call the people who were assigned to call while we booted up and raced to get the boss. Having non-instance raid bosses was terrible. So, you know, I mean, of course, World of Warcraft wasn't that mad. You can almost imagine the early MMOs. It was a bit like, okay, we're creating these epic adventures that they read about in fantasy books. What could be more epic than a boss that takes you a day to kill? Or I don't even know at the time how anyone thought that was a good idea. But people obviously loved it. You know, these things were popular. I don't know how popular the fact that it took you that lot, hours to kill a boss actually were. As I say, I've never experienced anything like that. I've only heard horror stories. But I do remember in vanilla, in terms of non-instance bosses, there were world bosses. You had Doomlord Kazakh. You had Azuragos in Ashara. I'm trying to think if there was another one before the Dragons of Nightmare. Can't remember. But those ones generally weren't bothered with that. Sometimes there might be a couple of groups on at them. But on the realm I was on, there were only so many guilds, like 2 or 3, that could realistically do them. And but the Dragons of Nightmare, that, you needed that for the nature resist gear for Anchorage. And also, by the time the Dragons of Nightmare came out, there would be more guilds that were equipped to deal with raid bosses like that. So people would leave out the spot, because there are only 4 spawn points around the world there, and periodically log on to them to see if the dragon had appeared, so that we could get people over there ASAP. Now, I was never in a guild where, I might be woken up in the middle of the night. I mean, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have given the guild the bloody phone number for that. But yeah, I know even in World of Warcraft there were guilds that did that. No matter what time it went up, you might have to get up and be doing that boss. Mad, absolutely mad. I mean, because I know I say there's an awful lot of downsides and drawbacks to Mythic Raiding, which is essentially why I've stepped back from Mythic Raiding for BFA. That's because you have to put so many other things on hold. But the raiding as it was, I mean, it was hardcore to the extreme. And this wasn't even like the top people in the world, was it? These were just people who were serious about it. It's absolutely insane. Next one. Okay, so, talking about onto the Rambling series. So I sort of finished it, but someone's saying, the Old Man Rambling is an excellent idea for your channel. Maybe bring them out for special occasions if something really makes you facepalm. That happens every day. Or you feel that you need to vent about something. I don't really ever feel the need to vent. I mutter and moan. That's my way of getting things out. I never really let things build up. I just moan and carp about things. I really enjoy these segments and can relate to all of them. As always, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not necessarily completely stopped. There are some things I thought of that were semi-unrelated, but would fit into the format, so they might not die forever. But I'm not planning on doing one this week at any rate, should we say that? Because it sort of finished that narrative. It was intended just to be one video. It was only because when I started planning a few things out that I wanted to say, I just looked at it and I thought, no, that's not one video. That's what took for hours. So I had to do it over several. I haven't actually counted up the time it is for all 5 episodes either. But it must be 2 or 3 hours, surely. Something like that. More than one video. Okay, on to the next one. Another one going back to the days of yore. So, first world problems, isn't it? So, a few million discussing gold here. It says, although I never played vanilla because I was like 5, I did play Burning Crusade, and those were the days of, can you help me with this elite? And I got to save up for flying. Or the epic flying, yeah. Well, I remember, actually, this may have even happened a couple of times in TBC, but certainly in vanilla, not having enough money on my character to be able to afford a griffin ride to where I needed to get to. So it is different when we're talking about. I have an opposite problem at the moment because I'm going to be changing realms. I need to transfer a realm on my paladin, well, today or tomorrow. Now, although they've increased the gold cap to 1 million, that still doesn't help me because on that paladin I have 3.5 million. So I'm going to have to try and buy about 2.5 million golds worth of. I suppose the only thing you can buy at this point and hope to get anything close to the amount of gold back would be battle pets. But I don't play the auction house or anything like that, so I have no idea whether something's a good deal or not. I'm not going to spend hours comparing, gold, the value of things on Kazakh where I am and Tara Mill where I'm going to go. So your opposite problem. But yeah, I do remember the problems where you didn't have enough. Like 100 gold was quite a lot. There were people that had like 1,000 or even multiple thousand, but they were extreme. 100 was a decent amount, and that would tide you over. Yeah, it was, but I do remember, having so little, having like nothing to the point where I couldn't even afford the Griffin at certain times at level cap even. I mean, once I got properly into it, that didn't happen again, but still, yeah. And I also, yes, I do indeed remember saving up for the epic flying in TBC, because I remember when I finally got it, and it was when we still hadn't, well, coming toward the end of Tier 5, we're still progressing on Kel'Thas at the time. I think we were a couple of weeks away from killing Kel'Thas when I got my epic flying. And I remember getting my Griffin and actually flying it to the eye. Obviously, I flew to the eye Tempest Keep before that as well, but on a slow-ass mount. So this time I was going on a faster mount, and it was fantastic. That was a good feeling. But it took me all the way from, start of TBC to get the 5,000 gold that was needed. It was 5,000, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was 5,000. All the way up to the end, so nearly 2 full tiers. It took me to save it up. Not that I was great at making gold, but yeah. Yes. And now my problems are that I have too much when I need to transfer. Pain in the ass. Okay, so we're talking about, obviously we've dealt with the Legion now. Yes, they could always crack the box back open, but I don't think that's the intention. And now I think this expansion is all about getting rid of the old gods as a threat. It seems pretty obvious to me. And then someone's saying, well, they'll still have to deal with the Void Lords. I mean, the only answer I could give to that is no, they don't. You can't deal with the Void Lords. They are half the universe, basically. They are the manifestation of shadow. They don't even exist in the universe, except, they can sort of stretch in a little bit with a supreme effort of will, but then they get snapped back out or something like that. I don't know. There's no way of dealing with Void Lords. It is really all about dealing with the old gods. Because it's just this idea that this is 2 cosmic forces. The universe is made up of some combination of these 2 cosmic forces, light and shadow, and the Void Lords are the intelligence of the shadow aspect of it. I'm not entirely sure what the intelligence of the light is. It's clearly not Naru. I think Naru are just like old gods for light, aren't they? Except they don't infect planets. Or maybe they do, and they do it in cunning ways. Because, like I say, with the Illidan cinematic we had in Legion, we can't help but see the Naru in a new, dare I say it, light. But yeah, in terms of Void Lords, no way of dealing with them. No way at all. All we can do is frustrate their plans by nobbling old gods when we find them. And that's another thing, as I say, I think I might have been saying this last week or in stream, I can't remember. Once we've got the ability to kill old gods without harming the host, the world soul, we can go and do it on other worlds as well. Maybe that's what our job will be. To go from world to world, each time hoping that the next leap will be the leap home. What about a review of the Horde version from the second cinematic? So, when I did the review of the cinematic, obviously I only showed the Alliance ones because that's the only footage I could get, because I only have 1 level capped character on the North American account, which is my Alliance Paladin. I'd seen the Horde one, because I looked up on YouTube, because these things go up on YouTube really quickly. And the reason I didn't really say anything is because there was nothing to say. It wasn't bad. There's only a little bit extra for Horde. If you haven't seen it, obviously you should go and see it. It's a little bit, and it's not bad. There's nothing to complain about with it, but it's not good either. It doesn't really add anything. I mean, the only thing you get from it is Bane isn't happy that Sourfang's been left to basically die. That doesn't take a lot of working out. In fact, the only notable thing about it was that Bane actually stood up to Sylvanas. But then, Sylvanas said, so what are you going to do then? And he just bowed his head and went for the Horde and did exactly what she said. So he's still a weed. He just snapped a little bit, and then that was it. So we didn't really learn anything there. We obviously knew that Bane wasn't entirely happy about the situation, but we also knew that when it comes down to it, he's going to toe the party line. He's going to do as he's told, because he already has. In the book, he did as he's told in terms of breaking contact off with Anduin, albeit chipping off a bit of his horn as you know, sad time. And then in this case, the same things happen. He's not happy, but he's going to do as he's told. The only other thing you get from it is Nathanos, you know, being very reticent about the whole thing. Not obviously challenging Sylvanas or anything like that, and you wouldn't get any of that from him. But he's not happy about the situation. Well, again, of course not. You know, we're abandoning Undercity. He's not at all happy about abandoning Undercity, because I always get the very strong impression that, and I've said this a couple of times before, although he's a colossal dick to almost everyone, the only people he doesn't seem to be a colossal dick to are Forsaken. You know, I say in the book, it completely removes scales from my eyes about him as a character, because he was really understanding about them. Whereas Sylvanas was annoyed, and you know, she really, this idea of the Desolate Council really got under her skin. She just really no longer seems to have any regard for her people. They're like her things now, rather than her people. Whereas Nathanos, very much so. You know, he very much sees himself as their defender and protector. He doesn't see them as less than him. You know, his interactions with the Forsaken in the book and in the novel Before the Storm, I thought were amazing. Quite frankly, it was a completely different side to his character that I was seeing. So the fact that he would be very disappointed at this turn of events should also come as no surprise. So yeah, I really didn't see anything in it to say that was notable or otherwise. You know, it was a thing. And I suppose they had to do it because they couldn't keep the cinematic exactly the same from the Horde's point of view. Who really cares if Anduin has a double take when he's about to enter the throne room? And from the Horde's point of view, it's like everyone disappeared through that door, but now we only see Sylvanas. What happened to the rest of them? We know where they went, but you know what happened for her to remain behind and the others to move off. So it was an obvious thing to do, but yeah, there was nothing notable about it, I thought. Right, next one. So Exodus. So someone was basically saying, so when I'm talking about things like, oh, Jaina can just levitate a big bloody ship, so why are sieges even a thing? And you know, people pointing out, well, the Alliance technically have a spaceship with a cannon on there. Why is this? You know, why do we even need a flying ship? It is one of those things. This is the problem now with World of Warcraft. There's so many different bits, and there's no one really forming it into a coherent patchwork. It's almost like Warcraft's storyline now is like someone making a jigsaw, but when they get a piece and it doesn't go where they want, they get the scissors out and you know, jam it in there like that. But the way I like to think of it is, would the Night Elves really trust the Draenei to do anything? Because the last time the Draenei took a ship to Azeroth, they crashed it into a Night Elf island. Killed. I mean, if you've never done the quest for the starting quest for Draenei, by the way, you come across Night Elf who've lost loved ones because of your crash. You know, you've done a lot of damage to the Night Elves. It's amazing you were allowed into the Alliance, quite frankly. And I was saying, you know, and they wouldn't really trust them as well to carry out any fine manoeuvres like that, because, I mean, look what happened when they did bring the Exodar to Azeroth. Their parking was pretty appalling. So someone saying here says, it's actually quite impressive, to be honest. They basically plunged the Exodar straight into the ground after their descent from orbit, yet it's still in relatively good shape. Pretty impressive manoeuvre in my book. I don't really think that's to do with the manoeuvre. If anything, that is an accolade for the structural engineers of the Exodar. I don't think the pilot, in any sense, no matter how, you know, charitable you would like to be, would call that a good landing. You know, it went into the ground like a dart. Whether or not they're full, I know it was attacked by the Legion, all the rest of it. But still. Anyway, Leave that one alone. But yeah, I don't think we can really count on the Exodus spaceship. In fact, I did actually have to suggest, I don't necessarily even know where their spaceship is now. They probably crashed it on another Night Elf island. It has never been a good luck symbol for Night Elves. On to the Collector's Edition little pamphlet thing then, which I'm taking no stock in at all. At all. Absolute nonsense. But someone's saying here, should have mentioned it in the chat back then, but they completely changed the duel from what it is in the game. Sylvanas and Malfurion are fighting on equal terms in the novel, and Saurfang is indeed considering killing Malfurion. Also, the reason for the war is explained in more detail. Novel made a review on this as well, of course, Lawmaster. But here's the thing. So, you've got two versions of an event, completely contradictory. Not one version adds more detail, contradictory. In that situation, only one of them can be valid. So, normally, of course, you know, if you read something in a novel that contradicts what's in the game, well, usually what it contradicts is what was in the game some years ago. So, okay, that's a retcon. You get that. What you've got here is two things that are published at the same time. Now, although, Blizzard ultimately, it's their game, it's their story, they can get to be the ones that say which is the valid version of events. However, one, I don't think anyone has asked them in a way that they have to answer. Two, if they were to answer it, and I strongly suspect they would avoid such a question like the plague, even though I know that there was an interview done about it recently, or at least about the overall storyline, but I haven't seen it yet, so maybe it's in there, who knows. But I really, because if they say, oh no, that written version that's in the collector's edition is the valid one, then what you're basically saying is, oh, so people who don't buy your extra physical copy of the game, they get misled because what was in the game right now, the same basic day, is untrue. So what you're saying to is what we've gone through in the game right now, the stuff that's live now, is wrong. So they're not likely to say that. But then if they say, oh yeah, but the collector's edition is wrong, then it's like saying, oh, so the people who paid extra get this thing, but you put so little thought and effort into it that you just wrote whatever shit and changed your mind and didn't care. No answer is really good. However, what is important is that only one of them can be true. If it contradicts, only one of them can be true. If there's ambiguities, and it's possible to jam the two together in a way that they can both be consistent. If you sort of bend your mind around it a bit, okay, you can sort of take both. But when it directly contradicts, no. Because those are the two key things indeed. They weren't fighting on equal terms. Malfurion was clearly beating Sylvanas. And second, Saurfang was making it super clear that he was under no circumstances going to finish Malfurion off. And therein lies the problem with the story. Now, it might well be that the collector's edition is a better version and would have been a better version to have had in the game, but it's not the version in the game. And given that this is a storyline based on a game, I'm going to say that what's in the game takes precedence. That's how I'm going to approach it. As I say, the only arbiters of this are Blizzard themselves. If they come out and say, well, we prefer this version, we're going to use this version, which in a few years' time when people care less, they probably will. But in the here and now, I really don't think they can ever answer that question publicly. I'd be amazed if he did it in that interview, but as I say, I haven't seen the interview. Because like I say, you're either saying that we've shat on all of the players of the game, or we've shat on the ones who paid extra for the collector's edition. Who are also players of the game, of course. So, yeah. Okay, on to the next one. It says, it was ridiculous. It's all about girl power, nothing more. The thing I want to know is, who does Jaina's plastic surgery? She must be in her 50s by now, so whoever's doing it is bloody good. Well, there's a couple of answers to this, potentially, when I first thought this. A couple of answers came to mind. One, she's a wizard, so, who knows? I mean, you've got to remember, Khadgar obviously looks like George Clooney now, but in the old days he was old with beard. But it's not because he was old with beard, it's because in Warcraft 2, Curse turned him into an old man. We assume that when WoD came around, that he'd been able to remove that curse and blah, blah, blah. So, wizardry and sorcery can have an effect on what you look like. So, you know, that should be... And you know, she's pretty powerful, so I don't think it you know, it's too much of a problem to imagine that a wizard did it, basically. But then the other thing is, you look at that and you think, oh, it looks pretty good. I mean, quite frankly, Madonna still looks pretty good. I don't know what she looks like up close, but on television, she looks pretty good. And she's in, what, 60s now or something. So, you know, all those oils and stuff they put on as well. Maybe she's got some good moisturiser. I don't know. I don't know. But in this particular case, I'm just going to say, you know, wizard. That's the answer to everything. It's also the answer to, by the way, because although I've been picking a lot of holes, I know, with the storyline, there are some that even I don't pick holes with. As someone was saying, for example, well, how did the actual burning of Teldrassil even happen? Because those catapults do not have the range. I mean, it's a long way from that short dark shoreline to Teldrassil itself. Catapults don't have that range, which is true. And even if it did, those bits of fire, they're not going to catch on it. It's a tree in a load of water with a load of wind whipping up. Also, the druids, they've got the power of the wind, cyclones and all that. Wouldn't it have been a piece of piss to stop it? Yeah, all this is true. But the way I look at it is, a wizard did it. You know, it's magic catapults. And as someone said actually a couple of weeks ago, potentially, or not a couple of weeks ago, I suppose a week ago, Azerite infused fire, bale fire, something like that. Might be magical fire in nature, something like that. Who knows? I don't worry about little things like that. I don't worry about that. Because, again, at the end of the day, it's a fantasy game. And whenever you try and pick faults in terms of, like, science, then the answer that always comes back is, a wizard did it. And you can, as much as you like, you can go, but science, wizard, there's no recourse. You can't win. It's impossible to win. It's like being in Texas, isn't it? Apology for any Texans there, but you know, you have a reputation. Right, next one. So, oh dear. Right, next one. A couple of points on this one. So, despite your clear alliance whitewashing, sweetness and light attitude, I like your stuff and forgive you. Blah, blah, blah. It says, well, there's two things, actually. I'll read the whole thing and then I'll do the two different things. It says, I'm immensely unhappy with the direction for Sylvanas, and knowing there is context in the novels that helps explain it is just enraging. I agree that plot points belong in game, extra exposition and backfilling belong outside of it. Mistakes may be made in deciding what goes where, and of course you need to drive sales of premium products, I suppose. I missed out on a bunch of stuff to understand the game I'm playing because I didn't pay enough at the door. So, first point, I don't get the alliance. I see, people assume because I don't even play alliance anymore, I play Horde, but everyone knows I would rather play alliance. And they think because I play alliance that I'm invested in them in some way, and I feel I have to come up with excuses for them. And there's no bias there. Like, the reason I play alliance is because I liked archers over spearmen in Warcraft 1, and that's it. And of course, when World of Warcraft came out, the Paladins, I want to play Paladin. If Paladins were available to Horde and Alliance from the start, and if the friend who got me into it was Horde, I'd have played Horde. You know, and that's all there is to it. The reason I prefer playing the Alliance isn't because of the stories. It's because the buildings just look better. Sorry, the Horde buildings are shit. You know, the only decent city that the Horde ever had was Undercity. And it's gone. Pissed away. So, you know, there's the reason for that. So I don't, you know, and it can only come from, I think it's one of these things where people always think that other people see the world in the same terms they do. And if they're involved in the story from their particular point of view as well, that everyone else must be as well. It's a game, it's a fiction. And in fact, in other games, because it doesn't even matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is the Alliance are the good guys and the Horde. Mostly, not all, because Tauren and Trolls, different thing. They're essentially the bad guys. All right, the Blood Elves have got a bit of a... they've been a bit shat on as well. So we say the Orcs are the bad guys. But anyway, like in other games, I tend to play bad guys. Like, you know, in Warhammer, I like playing all the evil races. Star Wars: The Old Republic, I play Sith. Who doesn't want to play Sith? You know, when I dressed up as Star Wars characters as a kid, it was Darth Vader. In fact, even in Baldur's Gate 2 specifically, I got called out on this by a friend of mine because although, you know, there would always be a paladin in my party, and, you know, always paladin, sometimes two. And I was called out for very un-paladin-like behaviour, because there's a particular quest where you're sent by what are clearly evil authorities to murder an innocent man and bring his body to them. And they want his body because his DNA fingerprint, whatever the hell, can unlock this alien spaceship. So there's a couple of ways you can resolve this. You can kill him, take it back, and hand the body in, and then you don't get to do the alien spaceship yourself. You can recruit him into your party, and he will gain access. He doesn't have to be dead to gain access to the spaceship. You can gain in, and that's fine. You can do all that. Or you can kill him and not turn his body in, take his body and use it to gain entrance to the spaceship. And this has the added bonus of being able to get his armor. Now, unfortunately, in the newer version, the updated version of the game, it doesn't work. But at the time, you could use the armor on other characters, and it allowed you to cast spells, and it was as good as plate armor. So if you had, you know, a warrior wizard, which I did, or a warrior mage, you could put it on them. They could do warrior-y stuff. They could still cast spells. It was awesome. Guess which one I chose to do? Of course, I killed it. You know, because I'm lawful good. Now, the good part was what was called into question. I was acting on the instructions of the authorities. I just pretended that I didn't believe him, basically. You know, he said he was innocent. I don't really believe you, so I'm going to kill you. And then after I killed him, the way I rationalised it was thinking, but he said some things. Maybe the authorities are a bit evil. I shouldn't turn him in. Oh, but I've killed him. What I should do is take his armour, put it to some good use. And then I should take his body and get access to the alien spaceship where there's some really powerful weapons. So, you know, I don't always play the good guy. I frequently don't in role-playing games. I frequently don't. Lord of the Rings Online, there's not really much you can do about it. It's very difficult to play it evil. You don't really get any choice in the matter. Unless you're on a PvP, and that's just silly. So, yeah. But in terms of, the direction for Sylvanas, although I pick holes in the stories, the only characterization that I think is poor is Saurfang's. I think the characterization of Saurfang is appalling. The Sylvanas characterization isn't. You know, it's changed. She's changed, but the direction she's gone in, there are clear prompts for it. You can make sense of it. I take no issue at all with the characterization of Sylvanas. Only the massive plot holes in the story. But yes, the main point of this, and it's something I said last week effectively, is that unfortunately the novel should be background to it all. It should embellish the stories that are in the game, and unfortunately they don't. I mean, Before the Storm tells a story that's not even in the game, really. Well, there's a couple of little bits, all right. It does refer to the two cinematics that we got in game about the discovery of Azerite, but beyond that, it doesn't actually tell the story of events in the game. It's the bridge between the events at the end of Antorus and the events we've only just started getting with the pre-patch. And the fact that none of it was covered in game content in any level of detail, I do take exception to. I don't think that's right. There you go. Right, okay, so it says two separate thoughts, this one. First one, it says, what if Vol'jin, in yet another moment of weakness as war chief, turned to Bunsamdi and pledged the lives of all the Horde in service of the Lower, so now anyone killed by any Horde member becomes able to be claimed by him? I suppose that might be possible. I guess as accepted war chief of the Horde, Bunsamdi might consider that. I don't exactly know how it works when you dedicate souls, but I guess that could work. That might be possible. Yes. But I still go to I don't think it necessarily suits Bunsamdi, even though, in some ways you can sort of see how it might. But also, it was multiple voices, so it'd have to be other voices in there as well. But there are corrupted Lower. But then second one says, what if the Void Lords fear Sylvanas because they believe she will eventually destroy Azeroth, and that is why they wanted her to die? I still don't buy that because again, this whole it doesn't even in the comic suggest it. That's what gets me about the people thinking that old gods fear Sylvanas. It's not even suggested. All there is in the comic is an extra urgency with Sylvanas compared to the other people she was telling her to kill. But the obvious conclusion to that is because Illyria is more likely to kill Sylvanas. And we know that from the cinematic as well. Illyria even says, I wish I'd killed you. And it's possible that the only reason she wasn't was because the old gods are telling her to kill everyone, including Sylvanas, and she's thinking, well, you know, you wanted me to kill Tyrellian, I'm clearly not going to kill him. You want me to kill Varys, I'm not going to kill her. Now you want me to kill Sylvanas. Well, I sort of want to kill Sylvanas because she's quite bad. But you're wanting me to kill Sylvanas, so I'm not going to kill her. Maybe it was a double bluff. I mean, that's the best solution anyone's come up with, that it's a double bluff on the part of the old gods. They really don't want Sylvanas dead. But no, I don't buy that at all. In terms of destroying Azeroth, yes, okay, if Azeroth were actually destroyed, then that would, you know, scupper the plans of the old gods on that world soul. Obviously, there are other world souls that might have other old gods on it. But those old gods, yes, they don't care about the others. Their lone mission is to corrupt Azeroth. So there might be something in that, but it doesn't add up to me. It just seems a little... Usually the simplest solution is always the most likely to be true. But of course, that's for real life. This isn't real life. This is Blizzard making stuff up as they go along. So who knows? Who knows? And on to the final one. Another butthurt comment here. So it says, how can you credibly speak to anything from the perspective of the Horde since you can't be bothered to level through the Horde storyline? You say you can't credibly advise on Mythic raids, so you'll no longer be raiding Mythic. How is this different? As someone who has leveled through both storylines, I often find myself at odds with your credibility when it comes to your Horde commentary. In other words, I disagree with you, and because I played slightly more, I know more than you do. But it's actually quite simple. You see, Mythic raiding is a skill, and it's something that you have to practice, and therefore you have to do it to get good at it. Whereas storyline is passive, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is read and watch novels, videos, potentially. That's it. That's all there is to it. Because all of the stories are written in novels. You just have to read the novels. And any little storylines that occur in game of any significance will be on Nobble's channel as well. So, in actual fact, you don't have to do anything with the story. And also, suggesting that I haven't leveled through as Horde is also untrue, because I have. I've already made it clear. I've leveled through... I've leveled through Vanilla as Horde, Horde storylines at least, TBC, Wrath, because when I leveled up 3 Horde characters there. One of them was a Death Knight, so we missed out the Vanilla stories, but the other 2 weren't. And I've also leveled up through Cataclysm in Horde, and Legion as Horde. Did I do what? I did what as Horde as well, so yeah. But you don't need to. That's the whole point. It's a storyline. It's a bit like saying, oh, how can you say what was at the Gettysburg Address? Were you there? No, but someone wrote it down and I read it. It's like the easiest comment to deal with. But I think this is just one of those cases where, sorry, but it's someone who's saying, I don't agree with you, but I can't come up with any logical arguments, or I don't fancy taking you on in an argument of logic. So what I'll do is I'll say that my experiences are more valid than yours. Sorry, it's not. But anyway, there we go. That's this week's mailbox. I've got to crack on now and get the Ret Paladin guide finished with the editing. It's still got several more hours to go, but I should still be able to get that out tonight. Have to edit this, of course. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with others who might also be interested. I will be streaming when BFA goes live. I'm not quite sure how long. I'm not necessarily going to pull an all-nighter. Normally that would be a sensible thing to do, but I don't seem to have gone nocturnal this summer because of the bloody changes in the weather all the time. But anyway, never mind. We'll see how long I'll get going. So have a good time when BFA does launch, and until next time, I'll see you later.